and welcome to Planet Pulse on Firstpost. The Earth is constantly changing, and in recent years, for the worse. Summers are getting hotter and winters harsher. Rising sea levels, floods, drought, wildfires, and torrential rain have been disrupting lives across continents. The fight against climate change is needed now more than ever. On this show, we bring you all the top stories on the climate crisis, its causes, its brutal effects, and the warriors helping to fight the menace. The sun is no longer just rising, it's raging. As climate change intensifies, heat waves across the globe have become deadlier, longer, and more frequent. In India, the capital, New Delhi, is reeling under blistering temperatures, with thermometers soaring past 44 degrees Celsius, and nights offer little relief. But the elderly, children, and workers continue to face mounting health risks. This isn't just summer, it is a warning. From shrinking Arctic ice to boiling sea surfaces, signs of a world in climate crisis are everywhere. And the consequences are no longer distant. They are here, now, and dangerously real. Our next report brings you more on this unfolding heat emergency.
The world has been warming, but now it's burning. Climate change, long seen as a creeping threat, has burst through the door in flames. The sun, once a symbol of life, is now a growing force of danger. Across continents, skies glared a relentless white as temperatures shattered records. In 2025, the planet didn't just sweat, it sizzled.
So all the weather extremes that we're seeing are currently occurring in a warmer atmosphere and also with warmer oceans and in an atmosphere that can actually carry more moisture. So all these actually contribute to the fact that heat waves, as we've experienced them in the past, become more intense and obviously also more frequent.
April and May brought global temperatures rarely seen in modern records. In the Russian Far East, Australia, Central Asia, and even parts of Antarctica, the mercury soared alarmingly high. Global sea surface temperatures averaged 20.8 degrees Celsius in April, the second highest ever. Arctic sea ice dwindled to 3% below normal. In Antarctica, it was worse, 10% below average. Europe faced floods in its heart while fires and heat flared at its edges. Meanwhile, India entered the oven. In early June, the capital, New Delhi, was smothered in dry, blistering heat, with the city's central weather station hitting 42.1 degrees Celsius. The India Meteorological Department warned temperatures could remain around 45 degrees Celsius for days. A red alert hangs over Delhi like a heat-stained curtain. The IMD cautions people to remain indoors, hydrate often, and avoid outdoor activities. Relief may come, but only with the promise of distant thunderstorms later in the week. Until then, Delhi stands in the sun's crosshairs. And Delhi is not alone. According to the WHO, nearly 500,000 heat-related deaths occur globally each year, 45% of them in Asia. Heat is no longer just a discomfort. It's a killer. Heat stroke, cardiovascular collapse, and kidney failure now claim lives in hours. Now, even though the body tries to cool itself by sweating. But in high humidity, sweat doesn't evaporate. The result? Rising core temperatures, organ stress, and, if untreated, death. Outdoor workers, children, the urban poor, and even athletes are at grave risk. Poor housing, metal roofs, and loss of green space only worsen the danger. But there's still hope. Public awareness, early warning systems, and personal action can save lives. WHO continues to push for climate resilience in health systems, encouraging adaptation alongside emissions cuts. The future now hinges on urgent, united action. Because if the sun continues to rise like this, who's to say what next summer will bring?
Now let's turn our attention to the war in Gaza. It has led to tens of thousands of deaths and the displacement of more than 2 million Gazans. But the cost of war is not limited to this. The Israel-Gaza conflict is also exacerbating the climate emergency. The carbon footprint within the first 15 months of the Gaza war is more than that of 100 individual countries. And this is hardly an isolated case. Amid the war in Ukraine, Sudan, and other parts of the world, the carbon footprint of conflicts has mounted losses for humanity in this war against climate change. Our next report tells you more.
More than 2 million Gazans displaced. Tens of thousands of people dead. More than 90% homes destroyed. This is the cost of the war in Gaza. But innocent Gazans are not the only ones paying the price for it. So is the planet. Conflict between Israel and Gaza began in October 2023, and like with any war, the environment has become its collateral damage. The Gaza war's carbon footprint exceeds that of many countries. This is according to a new study. It says the carbon footprint within the first 15 months of the Gaza war is more than that of 100 individual countries. So apart from the huge death toll, the war is also exacerbating the global climate change emergency. But why is this happening? There are a number of factors. You know already that Israel has reduced Gaza to a rubble, about 16 million tons of toxic rubble. Destroying, clearing and rebuilding Gaza could alone amount to 31 million tons of carbon dioxide. This is more than the emissions of Costa Rica and Estonia combined. The second big issue is Israel's war machine. Arming and rearming it repeatedly has contributed to the problem. During the first 15 months of war, the US has sent 50,000 tons of weapons and other military supplies to Israel. This has contributed to around 30% of the greenhouse gases generated during that period. Another 20% contribution is from Israeli bombing and aircraft reconnaissance, mostly because of the fuel consumed by military vehicles like tanks and aircraft. Another 40% of the total emissions is due to aid. During the first 15 months of the conflict, Israel allowed about 70,000 aid trucks into the Gaza Strip. Of course, this was before the aid blockade for about 3 months and its lukewarm restart last month. The aid was grossly insufficient to meet the basic needs of the starving Palestinians. Nonetheless, the trucks delivering it have massively contributed to carbon emissions. Now, of course, Hamas is also part of the problem. Its bunker fuel and rockets have amounted to around 3,000 tons of carbon dioxide. But this is just 0.2% of the total direct conflict emissions. Meanwhile, 50% of the emissions have been generated by Israel. And this conflict is fueling the climate chaos, which is further causing deadly, destructive, and more frequent climate events the world over. West Asia is particularly susceptible to climate disasters, drought, desertification, and extreme heat. But what's worse is, the conflict in Gaza is not alone in causing the environmental degradation. So is the war in Sudan, or the soaring tensions between the US and the Houthis, or the Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the conflict in Ukraine has pushed the greenhouse emissions to an unprecedented 230 million tons. That is the same as the annual emissions of Austria, Hungary, the Czech Republic and Slovakia combined. Amid this surge in conflicts the world over, there is a growing movement to hold states accountable for the environmental costs of war. Yet progress is painfully slow. Accountability is still missing. And as humanity fights wars on the ground, it remains on the losing end of the war against climate change.
In a world inching ever closer to the edge, Kabul stands on the brink of an unthinkable milestone. It might become the first modern city to run entirely out of water. This isn't science fiction. It's not a dystopian film. It's our reality unfolding right now. As aquifers collapse, boreholes turn to dust, and children grow up rationing sips instead of dreams, the question isn't whether Kabul will run dry, it's when. And what happens next when 7 million people are left with nothing but thirst and silence? Here's our report on the unfolding crisis.
If the world needed a flashing red warning sign of what unchecked climate collapse looks like, Kabul is now it. Once a city of bustling bazaars and mountain air, Afghanistan's capital is rapidly turning into a graveyard of parched wells and disappearing hope. And it could soon make history as the first modern metropolis to completely run out of water. Over the last decade, the city's lifeline, its aquifers, have plunged by as much as 30 meters. The culprits? Relentless urban sprawl, climate chaos, and decades of shattered governance. More than 45% of boreholes have already dried up. The rest are not far behind. Kabul's current water extraction rate exceeds what nature can replenish by a staggering 44 million cubic meters every year. At this pace, experts warn the city's aquifers could go bone dry by 2030. That's not a long-term projection. That's less than 5 years from now for a city of 7 million people. And when the wells run dry, so does civilization. In Kabul, water isn't a basic right. It's a daily war. Families spend up to 30% of their income chasing clean water. Most are in water-related debt. Some are now forced to choose between drinking and eating.
My husband is a day laborer, so he earns 100 or 150 or 120 Afghanis per day. When we need water, he doesn't buy anything on that day. Usually when we need things at home, he brings them. But when we don't have water, he doesn't bring anything from the market for 2 days. He just brings the money home so then we can buy water.
Worse still, what little water is left is often toxic. Up to 80% of Kabul's groundwater is laced with sewage, arsenic, and deadly salinity. A slow, invisible poisoning with every step. The crisis, of course, hasn't gone unnoticed by profiteers. Private companies now gouge residents by drilling unauthorized wells and selling water back at criminal prices. A nearly $8 water fill-up is now nearly $15 and rising, because desperation always has a market.
We buy our drinking water from tankers. The water from the tankers is better because tap water is salty. 1 in 100 homes has water, but that water is salty and unusable, and it is only used for washing, not for drinking. The water is completely salty and not healthy. The tanker's water is relatively good.
Kabul's population has ballooned 7-fold since 2001. Meanwhile, years of donor fatigue, international sanctions and frozen development aid have starved the city's infrastructure. The UN's 2025 appeal for $264 million in water and sanitization barely scratched the surface. With only 8.4 million received, billions in international aid remain locked behind political red tape since the Taliban's takeover. But there's still hope. A $170 million project to redirect water from the Panjshir River. However, it remains stalled at the drawing board, caught in a bureaucratic drought of its own. Experts say this is about survival now. Kabul is collapsing and the city is still stuck in endless debates and funding delays. Even locals living under the shadow of military rule have given up on waiting for help. Some say that they just pray and pay. The truth is chilling. If we let Kabul fall, it won't be the last. It will only be the first, and the next city may not be so far from home.
And that's it on Planet Pulse for today. We will see you again next week. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
Stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka-charge mo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Skali radikali.
Japanese,
Yung todo idioma.
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select a language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.